I woke up groggy in my hospital bed, the anesthesia still making my thoughts fuzzy. The dull ache in my side reminded me why I was here. I just donated a kidney to my sister Emma yesterday. Through half-closed eyes, I saw my parents standing. In the doorway, their backs to me, whispering urgently. "The house sale went through this morning," my father said, his voice low but excited. "The money's already been wired for Emma's healing retreat in Bali." My mother nodded, clutching her designer purse. "She deserves it after everything she's been through. Besides, it's not like our other daughter needs that house anymore. She can stay with us until she finds an apartment." My stomach dropped. Faster than my heart rate monitor could register. My house? The one I'd saved 6 years to buy? The one still in my name? I forced myself to stay still, to keep my breathing even as my father pulled papers from his briefcase. My signature was at the bottom of documents I'd never seen, a forgery so obvious it made me sick to look at it. "She owes us this much," my mother said, straightening her silk blouse. "After all we did raising her, it's the least she can do for her sister." They left without even checking if I was awake. I laid there, frozen, as the magnitude of what I'd just heard crashed over me. My house, my safe place, my achievement, the only thing that was truly mine. Sold without my knowledge while I was unconscious, recovering from surgery I had undergone to save my sister. And not just any surgery, but one I had paid for entirely myself, maxing out my credit cards. And emptying my savings account because my parents claimed they needed to preserve their retirement fund. The same parents who apparently had no issue forging my signature on property documents while I was under anesthesia, the same sister who apparently needed a healing retreat in Bali more than I needed a home to recover in. I didn't cry, I didn't scream, I just laid there, piecing together how I'd ended up here, in this hospital bed, betrayed by the people who were supposed to love me most. Updated. I'm trying to respond to everyone, but it's hard typing from a hospital bed with an IV in my arm. Thank you all for the support. I never expected this post to get so much attention. Many are asking if there were warning signs I missed before this happened. Looking back now, were there? The truth is, I should have seen this coming. The pattern was set years ago. When I was 16, I got my first job at Subway, working after school and weekends to save for college. Meanwhile, Emma, just 3 years younger, was deemed too sensitive. To work, her artistic soul apparently incompatible with the concept of employment. My parents drained their savings and took out loans for her to attend an expensive art school in New York, while I worked 2 jobs to put myself through state college, graduating with an education degree and $32,000 in student loans that I'm still paying off. "Emma needs more support," they'd always say. "You're the strong one." Strong enough to buy a modest house in a decent neighborhood on a teacher's salary. Strong enough to manage my finances while Emma cycled through 5 different degree programs, none of which she completed. Strong enough to donate a kidney when Emma's failed due to complications from a condition she'd had since childhood. Strong enough to pay the $1,700 in out-of-pocket medical expenses not covered by insurance because my parents claimed their retirement accounts were untouchable. Strong, but apparently not smart enough to see what was happening. It started small. Parents calling to say Emma needed money for medication, for rent when she couldn't hold down another job, for therapy sessions my parents deemed essential. Each time, I transferred the money without question, because that's what family does, right? That's what the strong one does. Even when I noticed my mother's new designer purses or my father's golf club membership renewal, I pushed away the nagging voice that questioned where their money was really going. Even when I saw Emma's Instagram posts from restaurants I couldn't afford on my teacher's salary, I told myself she deserved small luxuries to make up for her health struggles. When Emma's kidney function dropped below 20% and she needed a transplant, there was never any question about who would donate. I was the match. I was the strong one. I was the one who could handle it. "You'll bounce back in no time," my mother had said. "Emma needs this, she's always been fragile." So I scheduled the surgery during my summer break, arranged for a colleague to take care of my cat Milo, and prepared my house for recovery. My house, the only thing that was truly mine, the result of years of careful saving and modest living, the 1950s bungalow I'd lovingly renovated room by room with YouTube tutorials and weekend DIY projects, the home I apparently no longer owned. The day after my revelation, Dr. Lin, my post-op physician, came to check on me. She must have noticed something was off because she lingered after, examining my incision. "Your numbers look good," she said, then lowered her voice. "But you don't. Is everything okay?" Something about her genuine concern cracked my careful composure. "They sold my house," I whispered, my voice catching, "while I was under anesthesia, to send my sister to Bali." Dr. Lin's eyes widened, then narrowed. She closed the door to my room and pulled up a chair. "That's not legal," she said carefully. "Have you talked to them about this?" I shook my head. "I overheard them. They don't know I know." She hesitated, then reached for her phone. "I'm not supposed to do this, but I want to show you something." She pulled up Instagram and typed in Emma's username, there on the screen. was my sister, posting not from a hospital bed where she should have been recovering from receiving my kidney, but from a private villa with an infinity pool overlooking the ocean. The caption read, "Healing in paradise thanks to mom and dad. Best recovery ever. Blessed Hamarcher new kidney, Bakarchers living my best life." The timestamp showed it was posted 6 hours ago, while I was still struggling to sit up without assistance. "I noticed something was off when your parents rushed her discharge, doctor," Lynn said quietly. I advised against it, but they insisted they had special arrangements for her recovery. I didn't know this is what they meant. I stared at the phone, at my sister lounging in a bikini with a colorful drink in her hand. The massive surgical wound on her abdomen carefully angled out of frame, the same surgery I had undergone, the surgery I had paid for, the reason I no longer had a house. The door opened and my parents walked in, all smiles until they saw Dr. Lynn sitting beside me. My mother's smile tightened. "We need some family time with our daughter," she said pointedly. Dr. Lynn nodded, gave my hand a subtle squeeze, and left, but not before I saw the concern in her eyes. My father pulled out some papers from his ever-present briefcase. "We need you to sign these," he said, sliding them toward me. "It's for Emma's follow-up care. The specialist in Bali is world-renowned." I took the papers with shaking hands. It was a request to transfer my remaining savings, money I'd set aside for emergencies, to an account I didn't recognize. I felt sick as I realized the healing retreat was exactly what it looked like on Instagram, a luxury vacation. And as I scrolled through Emma's story updates, I saw a man's arm around her waist. Her boyfriend Tyler was there too, enjoying my house money along with her. Updated. "Sorry for disappearing. They just took out my drain tube and I've been sleeping a lot. Many of you have asked if I confronted my parents right away, or if I called the police. Neither. And here's why. I needed to be smart, not reactive. They still had control while I was in the hospital, so I had to play along until I could make my move. Have you ever had to pretend everything was normal when your world was collapsing?" It was 3 a.m., and I was staring at my sister's Instagram feed for the 5th time that night, scrolling through countless photos of her recovery at a 5-star resort that cost more per night than I made in a week. Something inside me shifted as I looked at a particularly smug selfie of Emma captioned, "Feeling like a princess as I should." It wasn't just anger I felt. It was clarity. This would never stop. The exploitation, the taking, the expectation that I would give until there was nothing left of me. I was just an ATM to them, a resource to be drained, and I was done. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. Confrontation would only lead to tears, guilt-tripping, and ultimately, more manipulation. They'd find a way to make me the villain, to twist this into another example of how I didn't care enough about Emma. No, I needed to be strategic for once in my life. I needed to think like they did. Carefully, mindful of my stitches and IV, I reached for my phone. I scrolled past the missed calls from work colleagues wondering where I was, past the concerned texts from the few friends I'd managed to keep despite my family's constant demands. On my time and resources, I found the number I was looking for. Melissa, a law school friend who now specialized in estate fraud. "I need help," I texted. "Can you talk tomorrow? It's urgent." I set my phone down and took a deep breath. For the first time since I'd woken up to my parents' conversation, I felt something other than shock and betrayal. I felt resolve. I would get my house back. I would reclaim my life. I would stop being the family doormat. But first, I would need to play along a little longer. I would need to be the strong one they'd always counted on me being, just not in the way they expected. When my parents arrived the next morning with more papers for me to sign, I smiled weakly and told them I was too tired, that the pain medication was making it hard to focus. "I trust you," I lied. "Just leave them and tell me what to do later." The look of relief on their faces made my stomach turn. They thought they had me right where they wanted me. They had no idea what was coming, over the next week, while I recovered. In the hospital, I built my case methodically. Dr. Lynn became my unexpected ally, carefully documenting my recovery process and the medical necessity of a stable home environment for proper healing. She accidentally left her tablet in my room, several times, allowing me to document Emma's social media posts, showing her luxury, recovery. Melissa, my attorney friend, visited under the guise of being a former colleague, bringing flowers and legal advice. Together, we gathered evidence. Bank statements showing my payments for Emma's medical procedures, property documents with my forged signature, text messages from my parents discussing their plans for my remaining savings. I was discharged with strict recovery instructions. Bed rest, limited movement, no stress. My parents had generously cleared out their home office. For me, a glorified closet with a fold-out couch that sagged in the middle. "It's just temporary," my mother assured me, "until you find a new place." As if I could apartment hunt while recovering from major surgery, as if I should need to, I smiled and thanked them, hiding the pain that shot through my side as I settled onto the uncomfortable couch. Each twinge reinforced my resolve. My father watched me carefully as I set up my laptop. "What are you working on?" he asked casually. "Just organizing my medical leave paperwork for school," I lied. In reality, I was forwarding evidence to Melissa and reviewing the emergency injunction she'd filed that morning to freeze the remaining funds from my house sale. My parents had already spent nearly half on Emma's recovery retreat, but the rest, money earmarked for Emma's specialist, was still sitting in an account. For now, 3 days later, my parents left for their weekly golf game, confident I was too weak and compliant to cause trouble. The moment their car pulled out of the driveway, I called an Uber. The driver helped me into the back seat, concerned about my obvious discomfort. "Hospital?" he asked, eyeing my hunched posture. "Courthouse," I corrected, clutching a folder of documents. My body was betraying me with pain, but my mind was clearer than it had been in years. Melissa was waiting. On the courthouse steps. "Are you sure you're up for this?" she asked, eyeing the way I clutched my side. I nodded. I've never been more sure of anything. Together, we made our way to the courtroom where the emergency hearing was scheduled. The judge, an older woman with kind eyes and no-nonsense posture, called our case. I saw my parents enter just as proceedings began, their faces morphing from confusion to shock as they realized what was happening. My mother clutched my father's arm as Melissa presented the evidence of fraud, forgery, and financial exploitation spanning years. When it was my turn to speak, I rose slowly, ignoring the fire in my side. "Your Honor," I began, my voice steadier than I felt. "1 week ago, I donated a kidney to my sister. I paid for the procedure myself despite having minimal savings left after years of supporting my sister financially. While I was unconscious, recovering from surgery, my parents forged my signature and sold my house without my knowledge or consent. They used the money to send my sister on a luxury vacation to Bali, which she has extensively documented on social media." I handed over the printed photos, the timestamp clearly visible. They did this knowing I would have nowhere to recover from a surgery I underwent to save my sister's life. My father stood up, his face red. "Your Honor, this is a family matter. Our daughter has always helped her sister. Emma needed specialized care only available." The judge cut him off. "Sir, I see no evidence of medical treatment in these photos," she said, holding up a picture of Emma and her boyfriend parasailing. "What I do see is fraud, forgery, and elder exploitation." My father sputtered. "She's 32, not elderly." The judge fixed him with a stern look. "Exploitation of a vulnerable adult then, one who was incapacitated following surgery." The hearing continued with my parents growing increasingly desperate. My mother cried about family loyalty. My father argued they had my best interests at heart, neither addressed the forgery, the fraud, or the fundamental betrayal of selling my home while I was unconscious. The judge was unmoved. She granted the emergency injunction, froze the remaining funds, and invalidated the house sale based on the fraudulent documentation. She also issued a temporary restraining order, preventing my parents from contacting me about financial matters, and ordered a full accounting of all funds already spent. As we left the courtroom, my mother rushed toward me, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to us? To Emma? She needs that money." Dr. Lin, who had testified about my medical condition, stepped between us. "She needs to rest. She just had major surgery." My father tried a different approach. "We're still your parents. You can't just cut us off." I looked at him, really looked at him, perhaps for the first time. "You cut me off the moment you decided my house was yours to sell." It was the last thing I said to them before Melissa and Dr. Lin helped me to the waiting car. The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings, recovery, and rebuilding. The sale of my house was reversed, though it took time to resolve the complications with the buyers. The money my parents had already spent, nearly $200,000, was ordered to be repaid. Though I had few illusions about ever seeing that money again, Emma returned from Bali furious, calling me, texting me, even showing up at my school until the restraining order was extended to include her. My parents rallied extended family members to talk sense into me. But for once in my life, I held firm. 3 months after the surgery, I received a letter. From Emma, inside was a check for $2,500. A pittance compared to what had been spent. But something... "I'm sorry," she wrote. "I didn't know about the house. I didn't know if I believed her, but it was the first acknowledgement from any of them that what they'd done was wrong. I didn't cash the check. I didn't need to anymore." 1 year later, I stood in the kitchen of my house fully mine again. Packing boxes, I'd accepted a teaching position at a private school in Colorado, far from the memories and manipulation of my family. My side still ached sometimes when rain was coming, a permanent reminder of what I'd given and what I'd nearly lost. Dr. Lin had become a close friend, checking in regularly and even helping me find a nephrologist in my new city. Melissa had not only become my lawyer, but also someone who understood boundaries and respected mine. The doorbell rang. The real estate agent with final paperwork. My house had sold, legitimately this time, for more than my parents had gotten for it. The money would fund a fresh start in a place where my family had no reach. As I handed over the keys, I felt no sadness, only liberation. The agent smiled. Excited for your new adventure? I nodded, feeling the truth of it in my bones. For the first time, I'm living for me. My phone buzzed. Another message from my mother. I hadn't blocked them, but I rarely responded anymore. This one was predictable. Emma was struggling. Needed help again. Wouldn't I reconsider my harsh stance on family support? Once, those words would have sent me spiraling into guilt and compliance. Now, I simply put my phone away. Their emergency was no longer my responsibility. That evening, as I drove away from the town I'd called home my entire life, I thought about the kidney I'd given Emma. I didn't regret the donation. I regretted not setting boundaries sooner, not recognizing my worth sooner, not seeing that my strength had been weaponized against me. It took losing almost everything to realize I deserved more than breadcrumbs of appreciation from people who saw me as nothing but a resource. Updated. This will probably be my last update as I'm settling into my new life in Colorado, the mountains. Here remind me daily how small human problems can be compared to nature's grandeur. My recovery is complete. I'm teaching at an amazing school, and I'm dating someone who thinks my scars tell a story of strength, not weakness. As for my family, they did try to contest the court ruling, but their appeal was denied. Emma's on dialysis again. Turns out Bali wasn't actually the medical necessity they claimed. Do I sometimes feel guilty? Yes. Would I change what I did? Not for a second. Have you ever had to choose between your own survival and someone else's expectations of you?